use their leave really quickly, just because in construction you're always tired, and it's recommended that you take your leave fairly regularly. It's where a lot of people with office jobs will save it and save.
So, if you've used up your 4 weeks, you can actually purchase a few extra days or weeks, and I get extra pay for taking holiday.
Thank you for your time. I'm Yuto. Nice to meet you. What is your name?
So this is Zoe.
Zoe.
Yep.
And I'm Brendan.
Brendan. Nice
Yep.
to meet you.
You too.
Where from?
Australia.
Are you guys traveling in Japan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. How many days do you plan to stay?
21.
21 days.
Yeah, so
Oh,
3
that's,
weeks.
That's long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys came there.
No,
Sick?
we flew over.
Yeah, so we stopped in Nago for a couple of days,
Nago.
and then we're in for a couple of days,
Okay.
and then we go to Osaka.
Kyoto, and then Shibuya.
Shibuya.
Yeah.
Nice. Everyone in Japan.
Yeah.
Nice.
As many places as we can.
Okay. Nice. Thank you. And I will ask you some questions about the work environment in your country. And are you unemployed or self-employed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both work full time.
Employed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Zoe works for the government.
Government.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
She gets to work from home a lot, which I'm very jealous of as a construction worker.
Where's your job?
Construction. Things like the bridge, things like the parks, big construction.
In Japan, a law ensures a minimum of 10 days holidays per year after 6 months of starting a job. But many people don't take them all due to high pressure. How many paid holidays do you get per year? And what's the legal minimum in your country?
What do we got?
We get
4
4 weeks, which is the legal minimum. My job allows us to purchase extra leave. So, if you've used up your 4 weeks, you can actually, purchase a few extra days or weeks. So a lot of people use that. And then if you don't use your leave each year, it tends to roll over. So, if you only use 2 weeks one year, you get the 2 weeks from the previous year as well as the 4 weeks in the next year. So,
Yeah, I'm the same. A lot of people in my industry use their leave really quickly, just because in construction you're always tired, and it's recommended that you take your leave fairly regularly, as where a lot of people with office jobs will save it and then take a big holiday, like what we've done here. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And what do you do with that? It's a holiday.
Yeah.
come to Japan.
Come to Japan.
Yeah.
Stay at home and play video games for a month like you did.
Do you get them immediately after joining in the company or after some months since joining in the company?
So
it builds up.
It's about once you've been there for 3 months, you kind of have a lot of access to it, and it builds up slowly over time. So mine, I get 3 hours of leave built up after a week, and even on holiday that still accumulates because you're still employed by the company. So yeah, and that's pretty much how it works in most places, unless you're self-employed. And
Yeah. So after about 3 months, you have a week saved up. So
I see. Thank you. Do you get them? Yes. The most Japanese people don't use them all, but do you have to use them all in a year?
no.
over 2020 and 2020 and 2021, so COVID, my job worked from home the whole time. So I actually didn't really take any annual leave. I did when the Final Fantasy Endwalker came out. I took, but yeah, I think last year I had to take a bunch because I had what they call excess leave. So I had it saved up for over a couple of years, and my job went, actually, you need to take some time off because you haven't had any in a while.
Yeah.
So
It's like a lockdown.
yeah,
Issues.
Yeah.
Okay. In 2019, the government required people to take 5 days off as part of work reforms in Japan. But it's often difficult to take them all at once. In the end, the most people end up taking 1 day at a time throughout the year. What do you think about this compared to your country?
It's pretty similar.
Similar.
Yeah, a lot of the time, like, if we have like a public holiday, so the Monday might be a public holiday, so no one works. So a lot of people will use a day of leave on the Friday to have a bigger weekend. And if you're part of unions, a lot of the time that means you've usually got the Tuesday off as well. So we've got a big horse race in Melbourne called Melbourne Cup, and that's always on like a Tuesday in November. So what happens is a lot of people end up getting the Monday off for free, the weekend, and then they use a couple of days, and they have essentially the same as Golden Week here. They have like a whole week off, and they only use like 2 days of leave.
So the public holidays every
Yeah.
Monday?
Every
No.
Monday, I think we have about 12 to 15 throughout the year.
Yeah,
So,
usually one a
Yeah.
month.
yeah, about the
Yeah.
few months where there's nothing, but there's some months where there's lots.
Yeah.
So,
Like, do you usually take them all at once, or is it common to split them all?
a lot of people tend to split them up. So,
Yeah.
people with children might take the school holidays off. So, they might take a week or two, and then if they've got a partner, they might each take a week off because our school holidays tend to be 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
Other times, people might take, a couple of days here or a day there and then save it for a bigger holiday or. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
And when you apply holidays, do you inform your boss directly or use a software system?
A bit of both. Depends on who you work for. My boss, he's on holiday as well at the moment. We took him at the same time. And a couple of months ago, I just turned around to him and said, I'm going to Japan on this date. And he's like, okay.
Oh, wow.
As with Zoe's job, she has to like submit a lot of forms and
Yeah.
yeah.
Because the government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
depends
Um,
on the.
The
Yeah.
size of the company, basically.
Yeah. And I get extra pay for taking holidays.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
because when you leave a job, you get paid out for any leave that you don't use. So, they tend to pay a little bit extra to try and encourage you to take your holidays so that they don't have to pay out as much at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if
Yeah.
you change company, like Zoe might work for you for a year and not take a single holiday. So when she leaves and comes to work for me, you are an extra couple of weeks worth of wages, and that's just money out of your pocket. As where if you offer an incentive to take them, you don't have to pay it out when she leaves. Yeah.
That's great. And has your boss ever discussed or complain your vacation plans with you, or is there any pleasure to apply them?
So, my job can actually say, no, this isn't a good time, but they have to offer an alternative time. So, they might say, well, if you maybe wanted to take a long weekend, like a Monday and a Tuesday off, they might say, well, actually, you can't do that this week. We've got a project going on that you need to be in here for, but you could take next Monday and Tuesday instead.
Yeah. Or there's a national emergency or something like that.
Yeah.
Being in government, if she's kind of critical, important functions, the complete opposite of me. I just go to work and not go to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do people often use their paid holidays to travel abroad?
A fair bit do. A lot of people in higher paying roles do because they can afford to. But even still, a lot of people use it to go camping. So that's what my boss is doing at the moment. He's gone away camping for about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Out in the bush, out in the desert, basically. And
Yeah. My manager is actually going overseas in a few weeks, so I think it's a bit more common in the people I work with. They tend to go overseas quite a bit. So
many people visiting overseas.
yeah.
I guess for us, it's cheaper at the moment.
Really?
It's
Yeah.
cheaper for us to come to, say, Japan or to go to Thailand or something like that than it is to go like 3 or 4 prefectures, or even just flights to states or 2 prefectures from Melbourne costs about the same as a flight from Australia to Okinawa.
Australian people likes traveling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
Wow.
much.
Really?
Very much.
That's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Do your boss contact you about work while you're on a vacation? And do you have to deal with it?
I never have. I've never had to.
No, my boss has been really good about, if you're on holidays, you're on holidays and you shouldn't be contacted. And so other team members and stuff will step in and take care of anything that comes up. So,
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess you've still got access to your emails. You can check them if you need
Yeah.
to.
trying not to though.
Yeah.
Do you have a sick leave in your country laws? And in your country, a company?
Yeah. So what have we got? 10 days
10 days.
each. Mine's probably a bit different, but I think
Yeah.
the minimum is 10 days of sick leave a year, and then you can take leave off without pay if you need more, and that's kind of discussed between you and your boss.
Yeah, and often you get a little bit split between if you've got a medical certificate. So if you see a doctor and you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm sick, I can't go to work, they'll write a note that you can take into work and that says, Zoe was sick, so she couldn't actually work, and then they will take that from a separate leave pool. Whereas sometimes you can't make it to a doctor, you might be too sick, and so you can just say, look, I'm sick, I need you to trust me about it, and so they might take that separately.
Yeah.
But yeah, that also can be used for if you're a parent and your children are sick, so you can take that instead of
I see.
Yeah.
taking annual leave as well. So
Yeah, so a lot of people with like little kids, because kids get sick a lot, so like the mum might stay home and then use one of their days of leave, and yeah.
In Japanese law, there are no specific regulations regarding sick leave. And Japanese people are not familiar with the concept of sick leave. Could you please explain?
So sick leave is when, if you're feeling unwell, and that could be anything from maybe you've just got a cold, or maybe you're really sick and you need a few days off. And so you can take it as a single day or a couple of days. And then, you can either see a doctor about it and get a note, or you can, just call in and say, look, I'm not feeling well. And then, you take the days off to rest and recover, and you still get paid for it. You get your full pay for it. And then, it basically gives you time to recover.
What's your contact? It's like a message or calling?
Yeah, I normally just text my boss.
Yeah, text or a phone call, or sometimes you might be at work the day before and your boss goes, if you're as sick as this tomorrow, just don't come in. Well, I've had that a few times where I've just been really sick, worked the whole day and just been told stay home tomorrow. So, yeah.
Is it okay to send a message today? Today it's like
So
okay.
I often in the morning.
Yeah.
If you wake up unwell, you can just send it the morning of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Often if, sometimes when you're sick, you don't want to get up straight away. You feel a bit, you might sleep longer and be like, I don't know if I've ever slept. Oftentimes a boss will reach out if they don't hear from you just to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
And you can just say, I'm sorry, I was asleep. I'm not feeling well, so I might actually take the day off. And they generally like, okay, that's all right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It does depend on the boss. So
Some are very rude about it.
Boss.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the same to Japan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Is it paid full amount of your salary?
Yeah.
Provided you've got the sick leave, so it can run out if you have too many sick days.
Yeah.
And then once you run out, you don't get paid for it. But generally it's full pay.
Yeah, so it's your normal rate. So if you get paid, say, $10 an hour, and you take a day off, you're paid the same. Yeah.
Thank you. Is it paid full amount of your... No, that's the... What is the maximum number of days off for sick leaves?
It's 10 paid, and then after that, it's basically as many as you want unpaid, as long as you've discussed it with your boss, or something comes up. Yeah, you might break your leg or something after you've done your 10 days. Well, you can't work, so you just make arrangements. And you can make it up as well. I know in construction, a lot of the time, I've had more sick days off. I'll do some overtime, or I'll come in on a weekend and kind of make it back. And you can do that as well, so... Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Is it common to take sick leaves for fake illness?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
do you need to submit doctor certificate?
I mean, you can always just go to a doctor, and I don't recommend this, but you can say, oh, I'm feeling sick, fake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And they'll often give out the certificate, and if they're like, she said she's sick, there is generally a little bit of a leeway of some people might take mental health days, so that maybe they just don't feel particularly up to it, maybe they've had a really bad weekend or a really bad week, and they're just like, I just need a day, I'm not actually sick, but they might just say to their boss, I'm sick, because they don't want, their boss to know, and they might just say to the doctor, I'm sick, I can't go in. So they don't ask too many questions, they generally just accept that if you're sick, If you say you're sick,
Yeah.
and which is good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you said I'm sick. Your boss said okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
people might have had it if I take a day off if they've had a big weekend drinking.
Yeah.
But generally, if you take a Monday off, they do
Yeah.
ask for a medical certificate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know in Australia we're kind of almost proud of what we call chuck a sickie, which is which is I've had a big weekend or a new video game came out, so you pretend to be sick and just take the day off. Not saying I've done that a few times.
What would happen if you take sick leave 1 month or 2 months? Could it affect your promotion or evaluations?
It can. It really depends on who you work for, what the reason is. If you're really, really sick and can prove it, it can't affect you in any way. But if you're just taking the time off because you wanted to, then yeah, it can affect a lot of your career.
Yeah, my work isn't actually allowed to prevent promoting anyone for that, but you'd have to have a conversation with like your boss and say, look, I'm really sick and it's going to be kind of ongoing for a while. So long as you're upfront about it and you're really transparent, they can't actually retaliate and say, you know, well, actually, we're not going to promote you for it. They might come up with another reason if they're a really bad boss. They might say, you know, well, actually, you don't work very well, so we're not going to promote you for that. But yeah, as a general rule, they can't skip over you for that.
In Japan, if we feel sick or get the flu, we have to use paid holiday, and we only had paid holiday for about 10 days, and so it will reduce even further. What do you think about this compared to your country?
It's kind of hard, really. There's a similar thing in Australia where if you've used your sick days, you can use your holidays.
But yeah, you still get that initial, you know, 10 days of sick leave that you use first.
I think Japan does need a separate 10 days of holidays and 10 days of sick leave. I mean, you hear some horror stories of people like dying at work. In extreme cases. So.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. How many hours do you work per day, and how many do you work per week?
You're kind of set.
Yeah, I work 7.5 hours a day, so 7.5, and it's with a half an hour lunch break. So that's about 8 hours all up.
8 hours.
Yeah, and then that makes a 37.5 hour week. If I do any overtime, I can either get it paid out, but it's got to have been over 4 hours of overtime, or I can we call it time in lieu. So, you know, if you do a couple of hours late one night, you can actually maybe talk to your boss and start late the next day or finish, start late the next day or finish early. So they try to really enforce that you only work the 37.5 hours a week.
Yeah. And then mine can be, some days I might have a really short day. We might work for, say, 4 hours because of the weather or something. And then other times my longest day's been 22 or something, I think.
22.
In 40-something degree heat.
Wow, that's quite long.
Yeah, I felt. But
Someday.
but on average, I'm about 8 to 9 hours a day. I'm usually leave just after breakfast and home just before lunch, so before dinner. So I can't complain about that. It's pretty good.
The legal working hours in Japan are 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week. However, companies can make employed work up to 45 hours of overtime for a month by paying them additional salary. And how often do you work overtime, and how many hours in a day?
I probably do half an hour to an hour a couple of times a week. But then we might finish really early one day and go to a bar or something and just have a few drinks on like a Friday. And then a lot of the time you're kind of very flexible.
Yeah, so I generally don't work any overtime. My boss is really good about, you know, making sure that people log off on time and, you know, have the time in the evenings to do what they need to. There's been a couple of instances where I've, you know, worked a couple of hours each day of overtime, but that's very, very rare.
Are there law regulating overtime in your country?
Yes. So they describe it as reasonable overtime, which is about a couple of hours. But once you hit about 45 hours a week, that's when you've got to have like permission, or they have to ask you, can you work this overtime?
You ask it.
Your boss asks you.
Your boss asks.
Yeah, so they can't expect you to just do, say, a 70-hour week. Because, yeah, we've got lives. We've got families.
Yes. In Japan, one of the reasons for a frequent overtime in companies is the atmosphere where it's difficult to leave until your senior or, like the boss leaves. How is it in your country? And is there any pressure to leave the companies on time when you're finishing work?
So it kind of depends if I'm working from home or in the office. So I work in the office 2 days a week, and there's 1 day a week where everyone in my team comes into the office. And so some of them might come in around 10 o'clock and they might work a bit later. Others might come in about 8 o'clock and they'll leave a bit early. So often that you're kind of accountable for your time. Once you've done, your 7.5 hours a day, they're generally just happy for you to pack up your things and say, you're
in construction, a lot of the time it's the younger people stay back. So like the young, recently graduated engineers and stuff like that will stay back because they want to prove they can do the work. And a lot of the older people, they look at their watch most of the day and just go, it's home time. And I've seen people just drop tools and walk away.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And just leave tools on the ground in the middle of a job site just because it's 3 o'clock, I'm going home.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yes, in Japan, there's a practice called unpaid overwork, where employees do not get paid for working an additional 15 or 13 minutes, or sometimes some hours. But how is it in your country? Is there customs like unpaid overtime for small increments like 15 or 30 minutes or sometimes longer?
Yeah, there is. So a lot of people that work in shops have to get there about 15 minutes earlier to get ready to sell things. And then once the store hours are done, you hang back for say 15 minutes, pack everything up, count the money, put it in the safe. And
That's less common with office jobs. So you don't really get paid for the incremental overtime. But you might just take that out of the next day. You might finish 15 or 30 minutes earlier, or maybe you'll just wait until the end of the week and you're like, well, actually, I did,
2 hours.
an extra 2
work,
hours
I'll
of the
go
week.
home
So
early.
I'll finish on Friday, 2 hours early. Have a start the weekend early.
Yeah.
So
In Japan, there's a system called fixed overtime pay, in which employees are paid a fixed amount each month, regardless of whether they work overtime or not. Many companies have adopted this system. Does your country and the company have this system?
Ours is more case by case basis. You get paid rather than a fixed amount. You get paid for all the hours you've worked. So at the end of the month, you could have worked an extra 80 hours and you'll get paid for the 80 hours. But then it's also written in contracts. So you might only get a set amount per week. It's like $1,000 a week, regardless of how many hours I do, versus somebody who's paid by the hour.
and often when you do overtime, if you are paid hourly, once you've done your hours for the day, you get what's called time and a half. So you get your regular pay plus half of that. And then that also generally applies to people who work a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then if you work, I think it's over 4 hours in a day, 4 hours of overtime in a day, you get double time. So you get twice your regular pay. And that also kind of is people who work on Sundays.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In Japan, there's an expectation to sacrifice personal time for the sake of contributing to the company. And do you have a similar scene of loyalty and the desire to contribute to company in your country?
It depends on the industry. Doctors, lawyers, people in high corporate, they sacrifice a lot of their personal lives. A lot of people in construction, normal jobs, will prioritize their family and everything over working.
So I think a lot of bosses understand that once you've done your 8 hours for the day, just because you leave, it doesn't mean that you aren't committed to the company or the work that you do. But people do have other commitments, so children, or maybe they look after their parents, or even pets.
Yeah.
Or maybe,
hobbies.
they've got hobbies they need to do. So yeah, there's an understanding that just because you've only worked your 8 hours, it doesn't mean that you're not committed. So
On the Japanese work culture and the way Japanese people work compared to your country.
I think there's a lot that, especially Australia, can kind of take from it. The fact that everybody contributes, like everyone keeps things clean. Everyone at Lawson's will serve you. As we're in Australia, a lot of people go, "That's not my job."
yeah, everyone here is very dedicated, I think.
Yeah.
But I do think that your bosses need to understand that you have lives and you are only just human. You do get sick and you do need to enjoy the life that you live.
Yeah.
And so
Work hard enough for it.
yeah. Otherwise, you just die miserable.
Yes.
Yeah, and you miss out on a lot of life, and
Yeah.
you don't get to travel.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. Okay, thank you for your time.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. ありがとうございます。Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good trip.
Yes.
Thank you.